So it's Halloween again, the most wonderful time of year. Decorations, costumes, candy, and horror. If you've ever listened to any podcasts with me, or just about anything else with me and Cambrian, you know that we absolutely love Halloween. It is the most wonderful time of year. Christmas can go do one. Not to say I don't like Christmas, just Halloween's a lot better.
It's dark, it's spooky, and it's awesome. Also candy. Don't forget candy. Now, while horror movies and games are for any time of year, there's something almost celebratory and ritualistic about marathoning them over the holiday period. At the moment, for instance, I'm playing The Evil Within, the first one, which I've eventually gotten around to playing, so we'll see if I get a video about that posted anytime soon. However, if you were to ask me, Monadrew, I love horror games, but I don't have any horror games. What can I do? First thing,
why don't you as a gamer have any horror games? I mean, seriously, if you like games and horror.
Secondly, well, there are games out there, obscure and popular ones, which are not horror games in themselves, but do have the occasional area or level that are a little dark and spooky in comparison to the rest of the game. So, I have compiled a selection of levels and sections in non-horror games that certainly have something lurking in the shadows. Now, this list is neither exhaustive or in any particular order. I just wanted to bring up a few examples. Maybe I'll do a part 2 at some point, so feel free to post your own selections in the comments section. For now, however, let us endure 8 horror parts! 2 games that aren't really horror. So to start with, a game me and Cambrian have already made a video on, Rugrats: The Search for Reptar for the PlayStation. The aim of the game is for the babies of the well-loved and remembered Nickelodeon series to find or earn 12 pieces of the missing Reptar puzzle.
And that's it. It's not really any more complex than that.
The game itself looks very primitive by today's standards. It's short, and it's essentially just a selection of mini-games. But darn is it good fun to play. As a kid, I played it with my cousin, Cambrian played it with her sister, and both me and Cambrian have played with each other.
The game.
Rugrats is a fairly innocent fare, though with the occasional suggestive reference to pornography or euthanasia, and the game itself reflects this in how bright and colourful it is. Though, there is one slightly creepy part to the experience. By going to the level selection in Tommy's bedroom, you can activate the part of the game where there is a blackout during the night, caused by Stu, of course, and Tommy needs to find out where the lights have gone, in a level appropriately titled, Let There Be Light. This is quite a neat level, as I, and many others when they were children, had a fear of the dark and what monsters may lurk within it. Fuck, I still have nightmares about being stuck in a dark place and being afraid of what's there, in the shadows, looking at me. Tommy is equipped with a torch to shine away the shadow monsters, essentially the cliche image of the spooky ghost. If they get you, you'll lose milk, I guess. Lose too much milk and you'll make Tommy cry. Admittedly, it's not the worst thing that could happen to a character when you lose at a game. The level itself, like others in Rugrats: The Search for Reptar, is very short, especially if you know where to look. Not that it's a hard game anyway. I like this one just because it seems to reference a past time and a more innocent sort of terror.
Which, of course, would be ridiculous to be afraid of now.
For a much more popular game, just a couple of years before that, it's Mario 64 to be precise. If you have somehow never played or know what this game is, here's a very quick lesson. Super Mario 64 from 1996, a famous 3D platformer, various stages with themes with the aim to collect the stolen stars of the princess's castle. Naturally, in the mix there is a spooky level, and what could be more appropriate than a haunted house? The method of reaching this level, however, is quite unique. Whereas most of the stages in the game are reached by jumping into a magic painting, this one you have to enter through a bird cage, a big ghost drops, if you butt slam on it. As with most stages in Mario 64, there are 6 objectives to play in this area. Haunted houses, of course, are a popular hangout of ghosts. Ghosts in the Mario series being known, of course, for the quirk that they can only attack you if you don't look directly at them, whereas if you do, they will sort of disappear or stay still. In Mario 64, you also need to look away to deal any damage to them, via the previously mentioned precision butt slam. This is also how you deal with the boss, Big Boo, making it one of the easier and less dignified ways to dispatch a foe. Since this is one of the most popular games ever, I'm not really going to talk too much into it in any real detail. Though I must ask, what exactly is the stuff the giant eyeballs shoot out? And what's with the pitiful death cry that makes me feel so sorry for these abominations? Oh. 40 Winks for the PlayStation and N64 may not be a massively remembered title, but I remember it being the cover promotion for N64 magazine back in the day, and it grabbed my imagination as a kid. I wanted it really bad, but it was not until some time later that I actually did acquire it. In this case, it was for the PlayStation format rather than the Nintendo. It's a pretty standard platformer with a choice of playing either rough or tumble. 2 kids who need to save the Winks, dream-bringing creatures, from the nightmare-bringing Hoodwinks, sent out by Nightcap, a man who lives in a giant ticking clock, with his living teddy bear and wants revenge on the world because the clock keeps him awake at night. As you do.
He could just move.
The Nightmare stage is made up of 3 main levels, a race section, and the boss fight. The Haunted House has your usual floating objects, monsters, and giant spiders to stamp on. Which, can I just say, as someone who keeps pet tarantulas, that's just not cool. The cemetery has zombies galore, puzzles, and other secrets. The woods have, well, woods, and a witch to battle. A cool little aspect of the game is when you jump into the Jack-in-the-Boxes. Jack-in-the-Boxes?
Jack-in-the-Box-side?
You temporarily turn into a variety of things, from ninjas to robots or prehistoric monsters. Whatever you need to rescue the cute little Winks and kick the shit out of the Grem-spewing Hoodwinks. And how many Winks do you need in the game 40 Winks? Well, in 40 Winks, you need to rescue 40 Winks from the Hoodwinks in order for everyone else to catch 40 Winks. For a following generation of consoles, what could be more perfect for a dark night than a Dark Knight? 2009's Batman Arkham Asylum was probably the first game where you can really get into the character and feel like you actually are Batman battling your foes. And what foes they are. Some of the most iconic villains in Batman's Rogues Gallery. From the Joker to Poison Ivy, Killer Croc, and a personal favourite of mine, the Scarecrow. Hell, I like Scarecrow so much I made him my Halloween costume one year. If you're familiar with the Scarecrow, you know he's a villain who preys on a person's deepest fears, mostly utilising his own toxin as a hallucinogenic weapon. For example, if you're arachnophobic, you may see spiders coming towards you, and if you're afraid of the dark, you get the picture. Batman's biggest trauma, of course, being the death of his parents, and his fears being things like failing to save the ones he cares for, or being vanquished by the villains he's fought for so long. An awesome, exciting game in its own right, Arkham Asylum really kicks it up in a crazy town with these awesomely psychedelic and nightmarish sequences as you struggle against Dr. Crane's mind-destroying toxin. Thrown in a few skeletons and a giant Dr. Crane won't hurt either. Or maybe it will. As anyone who's seen my videos may be aware, I am a massive fan of the Tomb Raider series. But unless you count things such as mummies and shipwrecks to be scary,
and I do,
the first 4 Tomb Raider games don't really go much into the horror area at any point. Until Lara herself has passed from this world, it seems. At the end of Tomb Raider 4, The Last Revelation, Lara Croft is apparently killed after saving the world. You know, spoilers. The next title in the series is not the adventures of zombie Lara, but the premise is still somewhat morbid. After Lara's funeral, her butler Winston, presumably celebrating the fact he will no longer be locked in the freezer, throws a bit of a get-together where some folks reminisce about lesser-known adventures of Lady Croft. There's an adventure in Rome, a quest to find a wrecked submarine, and a high-rise caper to steal the Iris. The most horrifying tale, however, involves Lara as an innocent youth and a Catholic priest.
Get those thoughts out of your head.
As a teen, Lara stows away on a boat trip to a supposed haunted island being visited by the priest. On this wonderfully spooky island, she faces things like ghost knights, spectres, a sea hag, or a pond hag, I guess, and a demon just hanging out for the night. And the best part, as a teenager growing up in presumably Britain, Lara has yet to get her signature pistols. These are not easy levels. The lack of traditional weapons means you are best to run from enemies rather than face them. There are weapons of sorts. One of the things I really dig about the island is the use of iron to ward off evil, as was traditionally believed over here. Even things like demons not being able to cross moving water is a nice nod to folklore, as are things like creating chalk circles for protection and using a creature's name to have power over it. There are some cool creepy aspects like looking for a heart buried in the roots of a tree and an unseen evil from the bowels of the earth. All this makes the island levels of Tomb Raider Chronicles the most terrifying thing in the Tomb Raider series.
Until the control mechanics of Angel of Darkness, anyway.
Keeping on the subject of the adventurous Miss Croft, we have the much more recent Rise of the Tomb Raider. 15 years and 2 reboots later, Lara is in search of the mysterious divine source, following the clues of a man known as the Prophet. For the 2016 PS4 20th Anniversary Edition, there was a DLC mission automatically included in with the game called Baba Yaga, another folklore reference, Baba Yaga being a witch-like character of Eastern European legend. While traveling through an old Soviet facility in Siberia, you learn of a man who has disappeared hunting the witch that killed his wife decades before, and you follow his trail. I don't want to spoil too much of this quest, and although it is optional, I highly recommend it, as it is one of the best missions of that entire game, with insane spooky imagery very reminiscent of Arkham Asylum, and an awesome climactic battle. This is a quest into the scary that you must check out. While we're still on the subject of Rise of the Tomb Raider, I could not possibly overlook Laras Nightmares. This is an additional quest in Croft Manor. Lara is relentlessly hunted by these spectral monsters until she destroys all the floating skulls of hate. This is a cool little side game, but what really amps up the fear factor in this is that it's also available for PS4 VR. Sweet dreams, Lara. The final game on this list is from another series I enjoy, but sadly not as successful as I think it deserves. The Tenchu series began with Tenchu Stealth Assassins. It is a stealth combat game where you play as a ninja taking on various missions. Usually you can choose whether to play as Rikimaru with his ninjato or Ayame with her dual Kodachi, with some other characters throughout the series. They are a lot of fun, though perhaps not as dark as a certain box cover review would have you believe.
Tenchu is more disturbing than the Marquis de Sade's photo album. Really.
Tenchu Wrath of Heaven is the third game in the series, and thanks to the improved controls of the PS2, arguably more enjoyable than the first game. The missions and enemies range from human guards to sorcerers, though personally I prefer the more grounded missions as opposed to the mystical ones. There is one level there that makes the exception, and it is one of my favourite horror levels in any non-horror games. Whichever character you are playing as, the cemetery is a deliciously dark stage to play in. In this area, as well as facing enemy shinobi, you must also contend with the relentless undead. Like in the island levels of Tomb Raider Chronicles, an aspect I really love about this section of the game are the apparent references to folklore, in this case of course being Japanese. Now, I'm no weeaboo, but I do have an interest in world history and folklore, and Japan just happens to be one of them. I've even read 2 very excellent books on Japanese folktales. The cemetery in particular has some nice nods in it. The floating decapitated heads are reminiscent of Sogendi. There's the zombie-like figures, and there are a few instances of corpses rising in different stories to attack the living. The broken lanterns around the cemetery, although not enemies themselves, do remind me of ghost lanterns, which I also once made as part of a Halloween costume one year. Admittedly, I may be projecting a lot of this stuff on myself, but one thing I can definitely point out is a reference to folktales, is Rikimaru's weapon in this level, the Muramasa. Traditionally, Muramasa blades are considered unlucky and bloodthirsty, either craving the blood of others or your own. In a cool mechanic in the game, the Muramasa is the only weapon that can drain the life force of the undead. But conversely, if you don't spill blood, it will also drain your life force as well, should you not find enough kills in time. Don't want to talk too much about this level again, because I do highly recommend anyone who hasn't before just to check out the Tenchu series. This game in particular is a good one to start off on. As I said, the controls are somewhat improved from the PS1 days, making it a bit easier and smoother experience. The look, the enemies, and even the music in the cemetery level in particular just have a wonderful dark atmosphere. A high recommendation for myself, as well as the game and the series as a whole. Well, that's it for this Halloween. Perhaps next year we'll visit more devious diversions and sinister side quests. In the meantime, whatever you're doing, whether partying, gaming, eating candy, or just chilling at home with a good horror movie, I wish you all a very happy Halloween. And don't be too afraid of the dark.